My name is Sterling Giles. I'm from Dumfries, Virginia, but I currently live in Richmond. So I currently work at JMI. It's a creative, well, it's a marketing firm. We wear a lot of hats. So I serve as a copywriter and also a project coordinator. So, on a day to day, that could range from writing press releases, directing videos and for our clients and what have you. So like I said, we wear a lot of hats. And outside of that, I'm like a multi hyphenate by definition. So, a photographer, podcaster, writer, yes, multimedia journalist. So, I just love hearing people's stories and presenting them in unique, creative ways. Oh, audiophile too. I love music. So I enjoy the fact that something I'm thinking about or formulating might not have been done before, but it could be, just taking pieces of inspiration from different things and creating something. So, for example, I have this website called Babbel, and coming out of college, mass communications journalism major. So I was focused on, writing for like the Rolling Stones, the Complexes, Faders of the world, not knowing there are thousands, tens of thousands of kids coming out of school who want to write for those publications too. So I had a lot of prayer wrestling with God just about, wanting to write for those, but not getting, I was sending out like hundreds of applications and to these different publications, but none of them responded back, and none of them, with publications that big, they're not going to respond to everybody. So I took that personally. I was like, I'm a good writer. Everyone says I am. Like, why can't I do this? I love, hip hop, pop culture. But anyway, so I go to God about it. I was like, you know what I want to do. Why isn't this shaking? And God was like, no, like I want you to do something for me. And I'm like, all right, and I'm being very like candid, so I hope people don't think I'm being disrespectful. But so it just took months, and because God just got to a point where He was just humbling me. He's like, no, like I want you to do something for me. And I was like, all right, what is it gonna be? And it settled on tying in pop culture and Christianity, which are typically two mutually exclusive worlds, but there's a lot of similarities in those worlds too, and they're very interconnected. So that's an example of something I hadn't really seen, but I was fearful about because I was like, who would want to watch this or tune into this? But to answer your question, it's the process of pulling different sources of inspiration and making something that's unique and hasn't been done before. So. As recently as Chadwick Boseman, I felt helpless because one, like I said, we're getting killed at the hands of police, and two, in the same breath, like we're losing our heroes, we're losing, 2016 was another crazy year of just losing like all of our black heroes. So, our trailblazers are getting older. There's a new, I feel like there's a new resurgence that's coming up. So that's exciting and, makes me hopeful. But at the same time, it's like, these celebrities and heroes that have been in our families for several generations, like they're dying off. So suicide, like Jazz and I know Tamar, she's still here, but it further reaffirms that the lights, camera, action lifestyle isn't what it's cracked up to be. And I'm guilty of that, like 100%. Just being in this industry, being in journalism, hip hop media, it's you want to be in those rooms with the, your Jay-Z's, your Beyonce's, your Pharrell's, like people like that. And when you get there, you hear all these celebrities talk about, like, once you get there, it's like, it's not, you're working your whole life to get to this point. And then when you get there, it's just not what it's cracked up to be. A lot of them dwell on, like, the journey, the process is what excited them and was more fulfilling. And, and mind you, I wouldn't say I'm like I didn't follow jazz very closely, but I knew what she did and, like, the great writer she was. And she's been vocal about it. Yeah, I talked to my friend Mook about it. He followed her very closely, and he was rocked by it. So her mental health and depression, and she was just candid about it. Like, she didn't hide from it. But just even in that, like, the fact that she went through with it and and took her life, it just shows, like, she's a writer for one of the most successful shows of our time. This Is Us, and even despite all that success, she just wasn't happy. I'm not gonna put that on her. She might not have been happy. It might have been things she's grown up with, and unfortunately, she's not here with us. But it just suicide is real, and, like, Black and brown folks, are dying at a faster rate. It's just not being communicated. It's kind of swept under the rug. But we're taking our lives at a higher clip than anybody else, and no one's really talking about it. So I've been diagnosed with bipolar disorder 2 for most of my, well, I don't say most of my life, but from my senior year, so I was 2011 going to 2012, I was diagnosed with anxiety. So, and even during that time, they thought it was schizophrenia. So it was a lot. It was very gray, like a very gray area of where I was mentally. But from then till about 2 or 3 years ago, it was anxiety. I was formally diagnosed with general anxiety at 16 years old. So it was my senior year of high school. Like few weeks into my senior year of high school, and then I was eventually diagnosed with bipolar 2 about 3 years ago. So I was 22. I would say with general anxiety, it started in middle school, but I didn't know what it was. I just was obviously anxious. And there would be spells where the anxiety was so crippling, I literally wouldn't do anything. I wouldn't feel motivated to, go to school, or, if I got home, if I got in that bad spot, I could just, literally, I'll just lay on the floor for like hours, and, I don't know, it's weird to explain, but it was crippling. And, as I got it, and it was amplified my senior year, just because, just a lot of stimuli. I'm about to leave home for the first time for an extended period of time. I was, I'm the eldest, so I was leaving my brother behind, and we've been to school, like every school we went to, we've been to school together, so we were never like separated. And I was leaving, like I said, leaving my family and leaving my city, like where I grew up. So some of those symptoms were, ruminating thoughts, and just drilling thoughts in my head, worries, and fear of what other people thought of me, or what, trying to read people and just trying to perceive how they're perceiving me, which would literally drive you insane. So with that, and I think on top of being in high school, like, there's just a degree of judgment you face anyway, because you're just trying to be accepted by everybody. And with this attack I had my senior year of high school, just when it happened so early in the school year. I had like a lot of leadership positions I was in at the time, and just for me to kind of like, vanish off the face of the earth for 2 weeks, and only like my circle, intimate friends or what have you, knew where I was at. Like I was in a psych ward for 2 weeks. So how I got put into the psych ward. So, in school, it was just intense fear and paranoia and thinking like, people were talking about me, or, tying faith to it. Like, that just, the faith element was just like, I think what was like the straw that broke the camel's back. Like I'll never forget. I was at church at the service one day, and they're doing the altar call at the end, and my dad asked me like, have I been saved? And this was in the midst of me kind of like not being me in my super anxious mode. And I think I said, I had been baptized before, but I guess he wanted me to get rebaptized, so I kind of went with it. So I went, I'll never forget. And this church is huge, so I went down the aisle. It's just me. Go down, get to the pastor, and I just break down in tears. And it was just like a weird, intense moment. I'll never forget. But then after we go in the back, talk through things like when the baptism date would be, all that. So we do all that, go downstairs to go to Bibles, to Sunday school, and there's a portion, obviously like prayer or whatever. So we were praying, and I don't know what was going on in my head, but like I felt too proud to even pray, it was so weird. Everyone else was praying, but like I'm just sitting there, kind of like I don't need to do this type thing. It's weird. It's so weird. But anyway, so from that, sorry, this is like it's gonna be long-winded, but I'm gonna go through it all. So after that happened, a couple days later, I think my body just went into shock. It was just a lot of stuff going on, and literally my body went into shock. So I was, so we decided to go to Kaiser Permanente's, our healthcare facility. So I was in the back of the car, literally like frozen, like kind of just asphyxiated in one spot, and I couldn't move, and I was crying. I was like what is going on? So we get out the car and all that, go upstairs, and I'm like, we're in the waiting room, just this black kid just like frozen crying. You see all, these white families like kind of clutching their kids, like, I don't know what's gonna happen. So from there, get transferred to hospital in Fairfax, and it was, I don't know if I want to go, because that could be like a 15-minute conversation about my experience in the actual psych ward, but it was just a lot of, ruminating thoughts, extreme paranoia. I was talking super fast, or I was talking super low and not, inaudible. But to switch gears to bipolar disorder 2, so I was diagnosed with that at 22, if I'm not mistaken. And the way that came about was because I went to a new therapist. This was after, my situation, my senior year of high school. So I'd go to this new therapist, she, of course I'm gonna protect her anonymity, but she's a white lady, she has a mixed family, and I think she was trying her hardest to try and relate to that. She was like, so we'll talk about stuff like that I've experienced, and she'll try to relate to it, because she's like, I got black kids, so I can relate. That didn't work. Cause I don't know, I just didn't really like her. I didn't really trust her. And that's a key element, because she brought up, I'd explain like what I was going through, the emotions I was feeling, and she said, you might have some type of mood disorder. And I'm like, taken aback, and just growing up, you don't want to be called the moody person or what have you. So I was like, you know, for it to come from her especially, I was like, what are you talking about? Like, you don't know me. And so yes, I took that with a grain of salt. But then I talked to my psychiatrist because I'm still taking medication, and I'm telling her the same thing. You know, I trust her. You know, it helps. She's a black woman who I trust. You know, I trust my sisters. So I trust her, and she said the same thing. So all right, let me get off my high horse a little bit. And she was like, yeah, it might be a form of bipolar. It might not be an extreme form, so it's likely too. And I was like, all right. You know, I kind of took it, on the chin. And then like the week after, I was like helpless. I was like, how am I gonna function in life? Like, you know, bipolarism, what comes with that? I'm gonna be called crazy. You know, so just like, you know, it was a woe is me mode. But as far as a manic episode that I've, in recent memory, that had to have been January of 2019. Because I had a bad one the previous year in October. I think it ties into seasonal depression, so I think I have that too. But so it was January 2019. So it started. What starts off the spiral is not getting a lot of sleep. So I was, running on 3 hours of sleep for like about a week and a half, on top of going to work and doing these side projects. 8-9 hour day of work, and then I'm up for like 3 or 4 more hours doing, my side projects and not sleeping. So that just kept happening. And it got to a point, because we're not robots, my body just crashed, like crash. So I was hyperverbal. I still felt a lot of energy, like I could still accomplish a lot of things, and I was still productive, and ironically enough, even when I have gotten enough sleep, like maybe 6 to 8 hours, I'm admitting this, I've fallen, I'll doze off at work sometimes and what have you, but that wasn't happening when I was in my manic episodes, and you would expect that, with running on 2 or 3 hours of sleep each night. But, when that crash happened, it happened. So, with that, hygiene goes to the crapper. I literally was in my bed for 4 or 5 days straight, only getting up to go to use the bathroom. Wasn't taking a shower, wasn't brushing my teeth, and wasn't really eating like that. So with that, my weight would fluctuate. With that, I wouldn't say suicidal. It is more so wanting things to happen to me, so I wouldn't have to keep going or to keep living, essentially. Of course, I've had suicidal thoughts before, but it's more so I wish, I don't know, I accidentally overdosed, or someone would, I'm in the street and someone shoots me, or I don't know, something is wild in that frame of mind. But when you're going through it and it feels helpless, you just want to just want to be removed from that situation. And my girlfriend, she's seen me in that state, and I'd been hiding that from her for a while. I'll talk to her about it. I'll be transparent in that sense, but she never saw it. When she saw it, she's like, yeah, it's a real thing. It's not something you're just talking about. And that's why I appreciate her, because I could do that. Mind you, nobody wants to be around someone who hasn't taken a shower in 4 days. But, I appreciate her just allowing me to be in that, and for me to talk through that stuff, and just the stigma of having to be a machismo, and the bravado of being a black man. I could just be me. I've always just been viewed as the emotional one in my family, but just being able to do that, to be open to that with her, to talk through it, and then eventually come back and get to my quote unquote normal self, which may not be normal. It's just I'm doing the best I can. So. So the way that my mental health has affected, I don't know, that's probably not, I'm not phrasing it the right way, but has affected like my loved ones and, you know, even my coworkers or, my circle or what have you. In those manic states, I push away everybody because, and it's a twisted philosophy because I don't want to burden people, but I'm typically very responsive, whether it's like text messages or like phone calls or what have you. So naturally, if I'm not responding to those things, like people are gonna get, concerned. But like in my mind, I'm like, people have their things they gotta worry about, and they have their own burdens, and why would I want to add to that? But just time and time again, I've had to push myself to be vulnerable. Like like I was mentioning with my girlfriend, it's just like because and it's just a lot of elements to me because I'm a people pleaser, I'm a perfectionist, and when all those things are in a when with that culmination of things on top of what comes with being in a manic episode, which is like completely falling off the rails and not being put together and being ultimately a shell of yourself, I was fearful for folks to see that side of me, even my family. My mom, she was really the only one who had my mom was the only one who had really seen that that side of me, and it was something we kind of kept between us. She would because for a while it's just mother's intuition, black mother's intuition, which is I think is a heightened degree of knowing where your child is and knowing how they're feeling even if you're not in the same room. And she would sense that, and of course me being the college kid, oh no, good, try and flip it on her, like, how are you doing and everything, and she just kind of cuts through that. And so we had that rapport for a while of just me communicating how I'm feeling to her in that sense. And then my brother, who's my best friend, I would tie him into things, but I'd only give him so much, like, hey, like, I'm feeling, he'd ask me how I'm feeling, I'm doing all right, like, but not getting into detail about it. And then he eventually saw me in that state, and then my dad saw me, and that's a whole nother story, because he's like the epitome of like the black man, the alpha dog. So it was kind of like a pull yourself up by your bootstraps. The God doesn't work in fear, and so it was a lot of that. Like it was a lot of like kind of work through your mess, but not knowing how powerful your brain is, so you just can't will yourself at times out of a manic state. But yeah, so I say all that to say my fight or flight is to push people away and to return back to quote unquote normal when I feel like I'm ready. And and normally it's like a week long thing, so I'll jump back like, oh sorry, like I was feeling I wasn't feeling great, I was very vague about it, but yeah what's up, like, and try to pick up the conversation, like it's just laughable, pick it up like where like nothing happened. But yeah, I say that's because I'm playing myself every time and it's not helping anybody, but it's what I do to cope, and I'm trying to break it. So as far as mental health services are concerned, I have, well, my insurance is through Kaiser, so I have stopped going to therapy because, again, testament to that relationship. My therapist at the time, white lady, she said she felt, because I was doing better and what have you, she felt I didn't need to keep going, which I get, because it's like, we're if I'm doing better, why do I need to be here? But I feel like, and what do I know? Like, I'm not a mental health professional, but I just always thought it would be something that could keep happening on a rolling basis, whether we don't meet, maybe not meet twice a month, maybe like once every 2 or 3 months, but she's kind of like, yeah, well, you seem good, of course I'm being candid, you seem fine, we can kind of nip this in the bud and kind of go on your way type thing. And I felt the way about it because I was like, I'm still bipolar. Like, I'm still gonna have these situations that happen, and I want to have someone to talk to who's generally more neutral or more objective. But so I haven't been back in therapy. I want to, especially after the year we've had, just to talk through some things. But I also do take medication, and it's sad because I can't think of the name. But it's to help stabilize my mood. So I'm not, so I'm not up and it's not like a wavelength type thing, but it's more centered, and it's been helpful, and I do drink from time to time, but typically when I do, and it's probably not doing anything. If I do, I won't take my medication that night, but which is probably twisted because the alcohol stays in your system a lot. But anyway, so I do drink, so it's probably alcohol being a depressant isn't helping, and I don't drink often. I have been drinking more often, totally being transparent, but it's not an everyday thing. But say all that to say that I'm currently not utilizing mental health services as of within this year, but I do take medication. There's definitely a stigma, 100%, within the Black community about mental health, because it's viewed as was obviously, quote, wrongly viewed as a flaw, and because it can be written, especially like, let's use like bipolarism for an example, it's written off as like, oh, so and so like is crazy, you know what I mean? Like, it's crazy, but would never get diagnosed for it. But they could physically have that, could physically have bipolar disorder, but because, historically we don't go to the doctor unless we need to. Historically also we've been tested up, Tuskegee experiment, so understandably so why we're not running to the doctors. We just, a lot of us don't have insurance. A lot of us can't afford it, even if we have insurance. It's just like a lot of things that tie into it. So we only use the tangible things we can to cope. You have alcohol, you have church, you have it's just there's just a lot of vices, and even institutions that we rely on to substitute that help, or even diagnosing that stuff. So let's use the church example. You can, and I would say even like older generations, like I think we're having that conversation more and being more transparent about it. But your grandmas, your aunties, and what have you, who are, you could express something like, I'm feeling depressed or what have you. And it's like, pray through. You know what I mean? It's like I get it. Like, you can, bring your transgressions to God, but God might be telling you to, and of course I'm very candid, so I'm not trying to be disrespectful. Thank you for letting me know your transgressions, but you should go seek help. You should go to a therapist. You should go, get medication or do holistic, measures or what have you. So 100% there's stigmas, and even more so, it's apparent in Black men I don't think black men talk about emotional intelligence enough because we just don't have it. We just don't. And it's in part of us, our own doing, and also upbringing, because, and I would speak for black men, it's just like we're forced to grow up so fast, because a lot of our communities are single family homes, and they have to become the man of the house like at 9, 10 years old. You know what I mean? So it's like they aren't given the time to be kids and to laugh, to be joyful, to be happy, because they have to, they're already in providing mode, and they, they're kids, so that, that carries on, and and again, I'm speaking from a place of privilege, because fortunately I had both of my parents for most of my life, under the same household until, recently, but so I'm careful. I'm trying to be careful, because I'm only speaking on account of, friends I've had, or like family who have gone through these things or talked through these things. But I think when we're forced to grow up so fast and to suppress our emotions, and to and even like with how we engage with women, it's like, I have family members, like, a lot of the men in my family, like, I'm like 11, 12, so like the throes of puberty, and that's just a weird time. And, my uncles and whoever, what girls you talking to? Like, basically alluding to, like, have I had sex yet? Like, have I, am I out here like running women or whatever? I'm literally like, I'm just trying to go to school, you know what I mean? And I'm like, I'm feeling, it's a weird time, and I was nerdy coming up, so no girls were really giving me the time of day. So I'm just here, dog. I'm here. But like, it's like a pressure, and almost like there's something wrong with me if I'm not running women, or have mad girls like in my phone, or you know what I mean? So it's like, and so that, the almost, because it's almost like you're gamifying like how many women you can get at, starting from a young age, and that carries over until you get older, and that warps how we look at women, because like we're always looking at women like, what can you do for me, or what, you know what I mean? So it's like, and and women on the other hand, y'all are already like intelligent, like especially black are the most intelligent people on this planet, and y'all are, and in the same breath is like, the Malcolm X quote, and I'm gonna misquote it, but he essentially was saying that, they're, black women are the most disrespected and the most underappreciated group on the planet, and we only add to that because of how we were brought up, and the pressures we get from our male, from our uncles and fathers and whoever, and we're not growing through that emotionally, like we're not giving ourselves that time to do that, so we're really moving through a lot. We could be 25, 30 years old but still have the emotional aptitude of a teenager, you know what I mean? And it's like, fortunately I have a supportive, a very supportive family and circle. Just even going through this journey and starting out, I guess I was more fearful because I didn't know where to start. But along the road, my parents were very supportive and like, hey, we're here for you. We know these are like uncertain times and it's scary, but we're here. But at the same time, it's, it was new, especially like my senior year and, the years to follow. because because generally, just coming up, I quote unquote didn't have these mental health issues, which I probably did at a certain extent, but it just wasn't, on Front Street. And so they had to navigate that, and had their frustrations. Like I remember I'd argue with my mom because I felt like she was babying me at one point, because I felt like she was on eggshells around me to support me, but not to like agitate me, to like kind of take me over the edge and potentially end up in the hospital again. So, but it got to a point where I was reading that, trying to come into my own, and I'm like, why are you treating me like a kid? Like, I'm like shouting at her, like I've, rarely have done that to her, and so she's like taken aback, and like she doesn't know if she's like angry, but she ended up crying, and I'm like, oh man, like it was so. But to get back to the question, because I'm getting long-winded. I was very supported, and I appreciate that, but I know it's not the norm. I think folks' response to Kanye is unfair, and it's not out of the place of love. I was one of those people, ironically enough, because politically more so, because what he was, how connected he was with Trump, and how often he was meeting with him. So I was kind of, I'll say keep it a buck, I was demonizing him, because I'm like, he's one of those here. If he was, God forbid, if he was a past, that would be one of those like where everything stops, because Kanye's just Kanye. But I think I was more so demonizing him because of that affiliation, not knowing that when you're going through manic episodes, and again, we don't know the degree or what the official diagnosis is, bipolarism wise. That was poor grammar. But I think we as a people just haven't given him grace, even regardless of the tweets and the rant. Like he said like the slavery was a choice, and I know there's more to that conversation, but I think to an extent he knows the brevity of what his word and how influential he is. I think there's two sides to it. I think he knows what he is trying to get to, but oftentimes it doesn't come out the right way, or he, may say trigger words, and we're in a culture now like once that trigger word is hit, whatever follows that, no one's gonna listen or pay attention to you. And that's happened a lot to Kanye. I've done the same thing to him. But I don't think we've just given him enough grace. And because he's probably one of the most recognizable figures in pop culture and entertainment, it's just a flurry of messages and judgment being thrown at him. And and I'm sure he's seeing all this. Like there'll be moments and lapses where he's active and tweeting like crazy and all over the place, and then when you don't hear from him for months on end. So I think there should be more grace provided, despite some of the things he said, because we're imperfect people. I think I'm still learning how to cope. And I think I'll still continue to be learning how to cope with the symptoms of bipolar disorder. Is work, and which isn't great. It's not good, because, and this is something I ironically learned in quarantine, is like because bipolar disorder in itself is so, ironically enough, polarizing, and it's so uncertain, and you almost have no control of it to a certain extent, especially when you're in a manic episode. Work is like the only tangible thing I can rely on and trust, especially because of these projects like Babel and Sterling News and photography and all that, it's something, you know, I created or I shot that or wrote that up or whatever. So it's on dependent on me to produce, not on anyone else. So because I can, hold that tangibly, that's what keeps me going. But again, because we're limited in what we do, we're not robots. I get tired, and I get, I just don't want to work or just don't want to work on, a side project after an 8-9 hour workday. And looking at social media, and seeing, it's a highlight reel, it's highlight reels of people's lives, and comparing myself in that way, and I'm not doing enough, I'm not being consistent, and then that could affect to me getting into a cycle of, okay, I need to be sleeping less to put out a product or put out something to be consistent. Because historically in my life, consistency and Sterling just aren't aligned. Like we're just not a thing. So to counter that, I try and use work as my tool and coping mechanism, which hasn't worked, and I'm still trying to work through that. So what I would tell that kid, that middle school, lanky, nerdy kid, as far as coping with, mental health and emotional, whatever, coping with that, it's that we're all going through something, and perfection is impossible. Like and people pleasing everybody is impossible. So I would tell myself to be content with who I am, stay true to myself. As cliche as it sounds, stay true. It's cliche, but it's so true, because like, it's just impossible to please everybody, and it's impossible to be on 110% every day of your life. Like, it's just impossible. So just telling myself to be content in who I am, give myself grace, love myself, watch how I'm talking to myself, because you can only do the best you can, and as long as you do the best you can, everyone else has to deal with that. So. I decided to participate in the Style Effect project. One, because I love Mecca. I just love everything she stands for. I don't know. She just like, I don't know. She's just one of those people, like, you need to have like a Mecca in your life. She's just, just a ray of sunshine. You know what I mean? And she's just, she's happy and joyful, but she's also very like cerebral and keeps it real. You know what I mean? Like I don't know, it's just not, there aren't, she's one of one. There just aren't any Meccas out there, but you need a Mecca in your life. But in addition to that, because, just knowing Mecca's background and she, as a therapist too, as a mental health professional, and just knowing, she's all about fashion too. And it's funny, at times you think of the two not being able to merge the two, because when you think of like, therapy, you think of just like a drab room and like, what I mean? Like it's like, I don't know. When you think of a therapist, you don't think of a Mecca, and I'm sure y'all, get her contact and everything, and you'll see what I mean. Like each picture is just like a rainbow of colors and outfits and personality, and just for her to apply her background in both fashion and mental health to create this project, I was honored, for her to even ask me, because she'll tell you herself, don't have the greatest fashion sense. Like, I have jeans and a t-shirt on, but I think I appreciate her giving me the space to do this, and I knew it was gonna feel like, I feel like I was literally like, I feel tired just talking about all this stuff, probably because I've been running my mouth for like an hour and some change, but it's a really dope project, a very essential project, just to talk about how we navigate, and how, what we wear, can subconsciously show how we're feeling, and and even it might serve as like a cloak to what we're feeling, you know what I mean? So it's like a lot of aspects is very unique and very interesting, and it's creative, and it's modern, and like, to the point I was saying earlier, just being able to take parts of different fields or industries and creating something that's never been done before is super dope. So I said yes in a heartbeat, because I knew what it could do and what change it could do. So I'm honored to be a part, and honored that Mecca asked me. So this outfit is based on comfort and also a message as well. So starting at the kicks, I have very big feet, so these look like clown shoes. Get my good angle. But so these are the Jordan 3s, the cements. Yeah, I actually wanted a pair of true blues for the longest time, but these are probably my favorite shoes. And I've grown out of my quote unquote sneakerhead phase, because I wear these like all the time. So you see creases, I know sneakerheads are screaming. But I love the original Nike Air on the back. Yeah, and I'm from the Nova area, and folks, y'all have your thoughts about us, but we cuff our jeans like we have different cuffs and stuff. So I tend to like to have the cuff, over the tongue. A big pet peeve of mine is when I take pictures or something and one cuff is off and the other's on. It's, it's a big pet peeve of mine. Got my slim fit jeans. I just like how these fit. I haven't worked out in a year, so, which is to my benefit in a little bit, because otherwise these would be like gripping my thighs. Got the thunder thighs. These are Levi's, and yeah, just moving up to here. So shout out to Nick. Nick says go. So the shirt says love is all we got. And this was a really, when I saw him post this, I was like, yo, I need to get this. I missed the first wave, but but I was able to get in the second wave. So this is the back. I don't know what the back says, but yeah, meander on that a little bit. And so yeah, so what Nick did, just in light of COVID and everything, because a lot of small businesses have been hurt, particularly Black-owned businesses. So all the proceeds for these shirts went to those businesses. So one, it's a really dope shirt, very powerful statement. It was for a great cause as well. So, and I'm just about giving back, especially to our, to our Black businesses, creatives, and entrepreneurs. So that's all I'm about. And I had to get a shirt. So very simple, but very comfortable. So that's my life. That's me.
Good evening.